Hi guys, so recently I put a video up about the fact that to cut someone with a sword, in reality, you need several things to happen. Okay, there needs to either be velocity to the blade, it needs to move with some speed and force, in other words power and energy, or you need to push cut or you need to draw cut. Okay, so a blade will cut either with force and speed, like that, perpendicular to the target, or if it can be laid on the target relatively softly, with no force at all in fact, and pushed, and that will slice, or it can be pulled and that will slice. Okay, now when you hit something perpendicularly, actually it's very difficult to hit it completely perpendicular with either no forwards movement or no backwards movement. And this is something which lots of people seem to get confused about, I suppose. A lot of people seem to be under the misapprehension that in European swordsmanship, and I should mention historically people were under this misapprehension as well, and there are 19th century descriptions of different cultural types of swordsmanship, and some writers seem to have been confused on this fact themselves. Pretty much all of the time when you hit something with a sword, even if you're just swinging the sword and hitting like this, there will be some movement either one way or the other way. So even though you're chopping, and that's the main thing you're doing, there's always going to be an element of push or an element of pull, no matter how small it is. And this actually assists the cut and is very useful. You think about two people fighting, when you hit someone, think how difficult it would be to hit absolutely square on with no push and no pull when you're both moving and both fighting and both trying to hit each other. The chances are practically 0%. Okay, very low chance of not having either some degree of push cut or some degree of pull cut, because it's just what happens. And even remember as well that the moment of impact is not the only time that the edge is in contact with the person. If you successfully cut into a target or a person, there is not just a split second, an instant where the blade is in contact with the enemy or the thing that you're cutting, but there's actually a period of time during which it passes through the target, and during the time that it's passing through the target, it's not going to stay perpendicular the whole time. During that period it will be either pulling or pushing. Okay, so in actual fact when people talk about, oh well, in Indian swordsmanship or Japanese swordsmanship it's really all about the draw cut, well actually it's incredibly hard to not cut something with a sword and use either a push cut or a draw cut. It just happens naturally. Remember, the sword is moving through an arc. It's kind of already doing a draw cut without you having to even think about it. So that's the headline of this video, is that push cuts and draw cuts happen naturally. You actually don't need to try that hard to make them happen. The last thing I'll say on the topic is actually hitting completely perpendicular with no push or pull in the 19th century was included in a set of what were known as sword feats. Sword feats were essentially tricks that people used to do with sharp swords to show their skill. And one of these is one person would hold a lemon or an orange or apple, some other type of fruit, but lemon was particularly popular for some reason, a lemon on the hand, and then the swordsman, then you'd pick someone out of the public, out of the audience, to come and gingerly hold the lemon on the hand. And the trick to doing it was you had to bend the fingers and the thumb back so the palm was uppermost, because the palm's obviously softer than the fingers and the thumb. And the swordsman would cut through the lemon but show that he completely uninjured the person's hand. And what he's showing by doing that is that he's got the skill to be able to give a completely perpendicular strike that will divide a lemon. It's not going to cut skin, as you see in that demonstration. It's not going to cut skin, but it will divide a lemon or an apple or some other type of fruit or vegetable. But because there's absolutely no push and no pull to it, it won't injure the person's hand. They'll just feel a slight percussion on their hand, and the two halves of the lemon will drop down and everyone will go, oh, that's so impressive. And in actual fact it is kind of impressive for the reason that I stated earlier in this video, that it's actually very difficult to make a cut that doesn't have at least some tiny degree of push or pull to it. So there we go, draw cuts or push cuts are not difficult to do. They might be difficult to do really well, but they're not difficult to do. In fact, it's difficult to not do them. The thing that's really hard to do is to strike something with no push and no pull. Something to think about there, okay? Cheers guys!